Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of A Handful of Hope. I am so happy and grateful to have Victoria with us today, who's been preparing taxes professionally for over 15 years. She is an enrolled agent. Well, I meant to ask you what that is. Victoria is also a Distinguished Toastmaster, along with being a certified Canfield Methodology Trainer. Victoria, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And, it's funny because when we say the T word, I feel like a lot of people kind of shudder and withdraw, but for you, the T word is actually quite a pleasurable word and you really like it. Tell us about that.
It is. One of the things about taxes that I love is it's like a puzzle. And we were talking about jigsaw puzzles, and it's almost like that, in that everybody's tax return is different. Even though it's the same form, I could do thousands upon thousands and never come up with the same answer. And
Hmm.
so it's just always intriguing how different situations come up with different numbers. So, yeah.
In the US, well, in the world at large, but I know your expertise in the US, so I'll frame everything in the context of the US. Our tax season is usually due date is this Wednesday,
Right.
15th. The recording date of this is April 13th. And that's not happening. We've had it pushed back because of what's going on in the world right now. What one of the things I've been hearing people talk about with that is they think that it's I guess, what should people be doing to adjust to that? Should people still try to file and get it in by April 15th if they can? Should people embrace that new push out date? What should they be doing with that?
All right. So here's what's going on. Yes, they extended it to April 15th, and we are recording this a couple days ahead of time. But what they have not told you is that that's the federal return. Every state that has a state income tax can make their own rules. And so if you have a state income tax, be sure and check when they have made their filing date. Some have gone with the federal of July 15th, but not all of them. So if you have a state return, double check that just in case. But they have extended it. And what I tell people is to, if they can, figure out by April 15th what their tax situation is. If they're getting a refund, of course you want to file it and get your refund as quickly as possible. If you do owe money, you do have that grace period until July 15th. And so why not hold on to your money and earn that little bit of interest or what have you, and then pay it when it's due. But be sure and pay it when it's due, because they will be tracking on those fines. So
How have you seen, I guess, preparing for 2019, have you really seen the economic impact of what's going on right now with the COVID coronavirus with your clients and the taxes they've done, or the tax people? Are they panicked and withholding back because they're trying to see where their income is going to be in the next couple months?
it was really interesting because of everything that happened these last few weeks. When the stimulus package was introduced, they said that if you hadn't filed your 2019, that they were going to base the stimulus on your 2018 taxes. And then they also had parameters on what was going to happen, as if you made a certain amount of money, then they would start reducing the amount of your stimulus check. Now, what they haven't really said in the fine print is that people have been looking at 2019 who haven't filed and realize, oh, it's better if I use my 2018 because I will get the full stimulus because my income was in with that brackets. But what they're going to do is then later, once the 2019 is filed, look at that and determine whether or not you owe back any of that stimulus check. So it's best to know your current financial situation for 2019 and base it off of that. So yeah, double check those figures just to make sure, because the stimulus package is a wonderful way to help the economy grow and to keep us going. But there is a lot of fine print and there's a lot of unknowns still with it. They're still trying to get it out. The IRS said, or the Treasury said, that they did start the direct deposits last Friday, April 10th is when they started to roll it out. I have no idea how they determined who got the first ones, because now I'm getting lots of calls of, I didn't receive it. And I said, well, it's going to take a process. So if you haven't received it, don't panic. I think it would have been nice if they communicated that we're going by social security number. So if it ends with this number, it's going to be sent on this date. There was a lack of communication to us, so there's still a lot of questions.
I feel like,
a lot of people are allergic to taxes.
yeah. It's just, I could feel myself breaking out in hives or something too when you're talking. You said something there about the income discrepancy. So 18 versus 19, and how if you made more or less, they're going to be circling back around in 19 and checking that. I think I want to make sure we get clarity on this, is all these different stimulus programs. And actually, there's one other thing you said. You said it'd be nice if they communicate. I feel like there's a whole underlying theme through this whole process. It would sure be nice if there was some central communication and we all knew what the hell was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard different programs are free, can be forgiven. You might get taxed on it. If you use it this way, it won't. But if you use it this way, it does. And, what's the checks and balances? With people who are getting this influx of government money, whether it's from unemployment or it's from the disaster relief programs. I know there's the Paycheck Protection Program. There was some other, what is it, the EI, some sort of economic impact one. And then I think different states, different counties are doing their own individual ones. So lots of money being infused in right now. Mm-hmm. Do people need to be cognizant of how they're using that money? Because is it going to be something where it's going to show up potentially next year and they're going to have to claim that in any way on their taxes for next year?
That is a great question, because it kind of depends where they get it from and what's it for, and if they use it for what they specifically said. So let's start first with the stimulus package, because that's the majority that everybody's going to get. The stimulus package will not be taxable. So that money will not be taxed. Now, if you get a business type of loan, and it depends on what that is. If it's a grant, generally grants are not taxable. It's just money that is given, and a grant is just typically not taxable. If it is a loan that you are required to pay back, then that will not be taxable, because you are actually paying that money back. However, if it was given to you and you use it not for what it was intended to, and they may be tracking it, it just depends on what entity it is, that may become taxable. And a situation I can think of to kind of go with that is in education. People can go to school and they get grants, and they don't have to pay those grants back, and it's not taxable. They get student loans, they have to pay that money back, and so therefore that money is not taxable. And in some cases, the interest that you pay is tax deductible. So there's that bonus. But if you get a scholarship for school and you don't use all that money for your school, but you still have the cash, that is actually income that's taxed. So I would definitely read what the loan is entitled to, or what the money you're getting is supposed to be used for, so that when that comes up in tax situation, you'll know which way you're going.
I think that's so important. And I appreciate you clarifying that. And I want to dive into that reading piece, because I feel like I'm a fairly educated person, fairly literate. And when I try to read the fine print, I feel like the biggest moron to ever grace the earth, because it seems like they're speaking 3 different languages, none of which I have the slightest bit of fluency in. How is for me, the layperson, how are we supposed to be able to, is there a source that we can go to that digest it down into understandable? I mean, and I'm talking I feel like sometimes I need literally the cat saw the rat, Ann and Tom went to the boat kind of language,
Right.
that level elementary language. How do we even begin to do that?
I think just by questioning. And if you ask a question to somebody and you don't feel as though they've given you a clear answer or one where you feel that they're confident in, keep asking, because that's really important. If we're going to go back to taxes, we have tax laws and we have guidance, but every once in a while there's a gray area and we have to try and determine. And that's kind of where lawyers get into the whole digging down and breaking down the terminology and how it is read. There is tax court where when the IRS tries to say to somebody, no, this money is not used correctly, and the person comes back and says, well, this in this form it says that I can use it for this, and then they will make a law of whether or not that this is how it's going to be from there forth, because it was a gray area, and so they're trying to get a little bit more black and white. I wish that there was black and white in every situation, but if you're not understanding, keep asking questions until you understand. That's the most important thing, is just keep asking. And it's sometimes really hard to ask because we don't feel comfortable. We don't want to have that vulnerability of, oh, I don't want people to know that I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like that too. And so there's times when I will ask several of my friends who are tax professionals how they view it, because the way I'm interpreting it may not be the way somebody else interprets it. And so my answer may not be wrong, but if you ask enough people, the majority will generally be correct.
I don't even know if there's a number, Victoria, but in your experience, again, for the layperson, how many times does somebody really need to ask to get clarity? Because I hear what you're saying, and I so appreciate you as a professional encouraging people to ask, because I feel like that is such an undervalued piece of advice that's dispensed out. A lot of times you see the turntable, let's get you in and out as fast as possible. And even the skill set, like you said, asking is it's for some of us, it's so foreign.
Mm-hmm.
And then even making ourselves vulnerable enough to ask, we may want to stop pre-actual understanding to try to like get ourselves out of that uncomfortable place, or not to feel like we're inconveniencing the person we're asking or any of those types of things. So I'm just asking for establishing a baseline for people to work off. How many times does somebody really need to ask to start to grasp it in a way that maybe it makes sense to? Is it 3 times? Is it 10 times?
I wish I had an exact number for you, but I think it's when you feel comfortable to where you could answer the question if it were asked about you, to have that understanding. And sometimes you need a clarity on something. And so look at the whole question if you have it, and perhaps break it down into steps of, okay, I understand this, but what is this? And somebody who really enjoys what they're doing loves to talk about it and will explain it over and over until you understand it. Sometimes it just needs to be said in a different way. And that's what I love about great teachers, is they can grasp that, oh, if I say it this way or I demonstrate it this way, they are able to flip it. So find somebody who enjoys what it is that they do and likes to talk about it, and you'll get your answers.
I love that, because I think it's such an important piece of, well, many of the experts I've been bringing on here have been talking about is how important that community and caring about the customer is. And I think it's such a refreshing thing for people to hear that, because it kind of empowers you to make sure you find someone who you're working with that is really passionate about it and is going to be excited to have the conversation about it and talk about it.
Yeah.
Everybody, when they do taxes, they probably want to try to figure out how to save some money. And I imagine right now it's probably top of mind more than most of the times. What are your 2 or 3 top money saving tips, insider information that the average taxpayer doesn't know about, that needs to know about, especially with the April 15th, but the extended deadline coming up?
Mhm. Okay. So the past year is pretty much past. Once everything is finished, December 31st of that year, there's not many changes you can make. So let's think about planning for this upcoming years. Now, of course, 2020, you're going to see so many different changes in that, income will be different. It will be hard to determine how much you want to have withheld from your check so that you don't owe it. But there is information out there. One of the best tools is to make sure that you have enough federal withholding withheld, because if you have over $1,000 tax bill, they tack on a penalty. They don't tell you that, but if you owe more than $1,000, there is a penalty. So it's just a numbers game, and so it's planning. Talk to your tax professional if you have one and figure it out. If you don't have one, the IRS does have a calculator where you can plug in what you think your yearly income will be, and it will calculate out of your situation how much should be withheld. Now, my whole purpose when I try and prepare taxes and plan for taxes is to get to where you're either getting a small refund or you only owe a little bit. The reason I like a small refund means that you've paid in enough, so you're not going to get that penalty or anything, and then you're getting a little bit back. I don't like people to get huge refunds. Those are nice, but generally that means you've let the government hold your money all year long. They're earning interest on it rather than you.
Mm.
So my whole goal in planning is so that you're as close to zero as possible. And like I said, it's a puzzle and everybody is different.
God, I love that distinction you made, because I've never even thought about it like that. And I think most people probably think of as, it's like that refund check, if you get one, it's the equivalent of kind of like winning the unexpected lottery. And they're reliant on that money to show up at a certain time for whatever it is, versus looking at it in a different way of prepping more ahead. You could have that money accumulating interest, and you would get far more money long term over than what you're getting in the short term with the government lottery ticket.
Correct.
It kind of goes back to just about anything, right? Like a lot of these, yeah, if we just prep. So prepping, how far ahead does somebody need to be preparing and be thinking about taxes? I know for me, I have traditionally, I'm such a horrible example.
You know what? You're probably like many people.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. This is how bad it is. So this is how I traditionally prepare for taxes. I think, oh, wow, it's getting till December. Oh, wow, it's almost Christmas. Oh, shit, that means taxes are going to start to be due. And then as soon as it rolls over into the beginning of January, I go into this, oh my God, taxes are due. And then I see the numbers and I go into this panic and I start to see all the papers piling up. And then I'm looking at it thinking, like, how in the hell am I supposed to make sense of all this stuff? And then I start to read the little forms on there, and I literally am that cartoon with the smoke coming out of my ears. I have a full-on meltdown, go into total overwhelm with it. And sometimes I just really reduce myself to sitting there and crying, going, this is so complicated. I can't understand what the hell this is. This makes zero sense at all. So for everyone, to help us stop doing that, how soon, how early on should we be preparing for these types of things?
Okay. So first of all, you are not alone. The majority are like you. So it just depends. If you want to do your taxes yourself, there's a lot of people now that want to do their taxes themselves, and you can do that. It does take preparation, but you can do that. But my suggestion is if you're good at something, stick with that and collect all your paperwork and give it to somebody who enjoys doing what they enjoy doing, which is taxes, and let them do it for you. They'll have questions that you'll need to answer, but it's really difficult. Now, but for planning for the year, you just don't want to go into a tax office and, give the huge box of receipts and say, here it is.
For sure.
So one thing is just a filing system by month, expenses and income. That's as easy as it can be. Then you already have the 12 months broken out rather than that box of accumulated stuff. And start in small steps. If you haven't been a person who's planned taxes, don't think, okay, this year 2020, I'm going to be on top of it. Every month I'm going to have my profit loss statement already. It's going to be pristine. Do one thing at a time. Maybe this time it's organizing all of my receipts every month in order and tracking those so that I know how much money I'm spending, not even counting what's coming in. Just take those baby steps, because if you try and chunk too much all at once, it's overwhelming.
Victoria, why do taxes have to be so hard?
Because there's lots of gray areas, and it's so much fun to just look at all these numbers and have them swimming around and they come in the right place.
What is the question that I haven't asked you that's important for us all to know about taxes?
If you enjoy doing taxes, by all means, do it. But as I said earlier, do what you do best and then hand over what you don't enjoy doing. So many people will spend many hours trying to get their taxes, whereas if they were spending the time doing what it is that they love, they would be generating more income than they would be saving, than paying somebody to prepare them for them. So, it's just one of those things of, if you enjoy it, then by all means do it. But don't be afraid to ask the questions.
I think that's such a beautiful metaphor for just life and business in general, right? Especially now, like in this time of pause and taking that time to be reflective of what really matters and who matters most. If those things aren't, I've been taking a lot of personal inventory on that and asking myself the question, why am I wasting my time doing things that I don't really love to do when it takes away from the stuff I love to do. And there's people out there who would love to support me doing what I love to do, and they'd love to do the things I don't love to do.
Right.
Right. I see my why behind you. What's your why, Victoria?
My why is my family. Everything that I do and the choices that I make are based around my family. And so my why is my family.
It's awesome. Everyone, if you are a seasoned tax pro or you are a tax shit show, let's just call it what it is, like me, this is something, and I use that word very, very kindly. This is something that I know I will need to rewatch over and over again. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it goes back to a core message that you've been hearing so many of the experts talk about during this time, is like the we versus me is so much more empowering and powerful, because it frees you up to really focus on what your magic is. And one of the great gifts I think that can come out of this time of disruption is it gives us all the gift of staring our mortality, staring our lives, how we spend our time in the mirror, really looking in the eye and asking ourselves again, who and what's most important. And if you do not love, what I love and appreciate about Victoria is when she's talking about, she's so congruent in it that she genuinely does enjoy doing it. And if you don't have that same zest, that same excitement for anything in your life, anything in your business, taxes or not, really consider finding someone who does and passing that off to them so that you can have more time for the stuff that really does light you up. We're all seeing right now how short and precious life truly is. It's not cliche anymore to talk about it because it's staring us all in the face daily. And really, the worst thing you could do emerging from this is go back to how things used to be and carrying around that burden. Again, Jesse's talking to Jesse here too, just as much as everybody else. I am going to make my pledge right now to all of you that I'm not going to subject myself to that stress and anxiety I put myself through anymore. I'm going to actually be a big boy and reach out and have someone support me in that going forward. And if you're interested in that too, I hope you take the pledge as well, because now having Victoria not only share that we should ask questions, to reassure it's okay to ask questions, and to show that there is people out there who really enjoy it, it feels like it empowers me to be better about making those decisions. And remember, at the end of the day too, you want to check. You want to check if you're in that gray area of should I file now or later. Check and see what it is with your state. Make sure you're in compliance with that. And also, I love the notion of prepping ahead so you're getting maybe a little back, because you don't want to let the government hold on to your money and earning interest, the same interest, that you could be earning, because that's money that is taking away from you cashing a much bigger lottery check later on down the road. Victoria, this has been absolutely incredible. I never knew I could have so much fun and smile as much talking about taxes as I did today. It's the first time I've ever talked about taxes and haven't broke down crying from absolute overwhelm and just a complete place of oblivion. You've changed my life today and how we could think about and smile. So I thank you so much for you sharing so generously. And this was such an insightful and empowering talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time, everybody, on another edition of A Handful of Hope. Bye-bye.